Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome on behalf of the entire Board of Trustees of the San Felipe del Rio Consolidated Independent School District. I welcome each and every one of you. I wanted to extend again my sincere appreciation for your attendance here tonight. I think all of us are servants of our great community that we love and care so much. And especially when it deals with education, I think we all understand that education is a key to opening doors of opportunity for all our young people that we have. And it's great to see you in attendance. Tonight, we're going to commemorate, again, the 50th anniversary of consolidation, again, between San Felipe ISD and Del Rio ISD. And I just want to say that this is historical. There's so much information. We spent lots of hours, and I say we, but administrative staff, researching documents and looking at paperwork. And so we're not able to fit everything into one video. Tonight, we'll see a short video, but it's a series of 3 videos in regard to the history. I want to recognize those people that are with us today, and just want to say that every superintendent leaves a legacy in the district, and they choose either a phrase or some words that will live with their legacy. And so fitting that Dr. Rios, our superintendent, has coined "Together we are better," because what has happened in the year and a half, we certainly needed each other, everyone together, to be able to get through this, whether it was a winter storm or whether it was the crisis on the border or COVID-19 that we're still dealing with. We needed all the help we could get. And we appreciate everything that has been done from the city, from the county, from Laughlin, from the hospital. Everyone is so important for, again, everything to go well within our district. And so we appreciate all the servants. We're all faithful servants in everything that we do, whether it's at church or at school or in your community. And I appreciate that. I want to ask, I believe, let's see, I don't see our mayor here from Del Rio, but I see Mr. Webb, Stephen Webb, city councilman. And I have JP Sanchez. I have Mr. James DeRusse. And from Val Verde County, do I have Judge Owens here? He's on his way. Martin Wardle, Juan Carlos Vasquez, Commissioner Flores, Bo Nettleton, Commissioner. Okay, Commissioner Flores is here. Welcome. From Laughlin Air Force Base, Colonel Prather. And do we have Colonel Nathan Thompson? Nope. Okay. How about, would you introduce your staff? Great. Thank you so much for being here. Judge Owens and Ms. Owens, welcome. From the hospital, we have Linda Walker, Dr. Lane. Linda Walker. Is Dr. Lane here? How about El Arriola, president of the board? Del Rio Chamber of Commerce, would you stand if you're here? And Del Rio Hispanic Chamber, thank you for being here. We have former school board members. Would you stand up and be recognized? I know we have Dr. Keys and JP Sanchez, Sylvia Delgado, and Nora Escamilla. Anyone else? Okay, now we have former superintendents. We have Mr. Fernandez. And I know I'm going to be missing, we have Mr. Julio Ramos. He was, I believe, Assistant Superintendent, Deputy Superintendent. Great. I hope I'm not missing anyone. Chief of Police, welcome. I haven't met you yet, but welcome. Again, it's an honor again to be able to be here with you tonight. And I hope in a little while, we're going to step down to see the video. And as I mentioned, there's so much information on the history of consolidation, but it's been a short 50 years already. And I can't believe that it's already, again, 50 years of consolidation. I believe we'll have the invocation now, Dr. Cruz? I didn't bring it. Okay. Great. And I hope I don't miss anyone that comes in. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's just a pleasure to have each and every one of you join us here this evening on such a wonderful occasion. We're going to begin with the posting of colors. For our Del Rio High School Honor Guard will lead us. Please rise. Left there, Sharon. Hard. Present. Arm. At this time, let's join our national anthem, the Del Rio High School Choir. What so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the banner us not, for the road we watch is so gallantly stream, and the rocket's red glare, what old twisting in air, it rode through the night, that our flag was still there. Who say of bright star-spangled banner yet wave? For the land Order. Please remain standing for invocation from Ms. Amy Haynes, Board of Trustees.
Good evening. Will you please bow your heads with me? Our Father in heaven, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for allowing us to come together on this special day. We have come such a long way through many challenges and changes, and we thank you for being with our district through the journey. Continue to lead and guide us, for we know with you all things are possible. These things I pray in your name. Amen.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to welcome back our board president, Mr. Raymond Ressa, who will lead us in the proclamation for the 50th anniversary of consolidation of the school district.
Thank you again. I want to, before I read the proclamation, we have former students from San Felipe and we have former students from Del Rio. Would you please stand, San Felipe? And former students from Del Rio? Thank you so much for being here. Proclamation of the San Felipe Del Rio Consolidated Independent School District Board of Trustees. Whereas on August 13th, 1971, the United States District Court in the Eastern District of Texas entered a final opinion ordering the school districts of San Felipe Independent School District and Del Rio Independent School District to consolidate and operate as a unitary system, affording all its students equal education opportunities as guaranteed by the 14th Amendment and Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and whereas on September 3rd, 1971, in the spirit of solidarity, members of the former San Felipe Board of Trustees and the Del Rio Board of Trustees joined efforts to guide the transition and formation of a consolidated and desegregated school district, and whereas through the legacy of their leadership, former superintendents Mr. Obi Poole and Mr. Homero Sigala worked tirelessly with the Board of Trustees as a unified team to meet the requirements of the federal government, had tasked them and collectively build a strong culture and a common belief that together we are better. And whereas today, the San Felipe Del Rio Consolidated Independent School District honors the faculty, staff, students of the era, of their legacy and testament of hope, pride, and determination during the turmoil of this time. Now, therefore, I, Raymond P. Mesa, do hereby extend this proclamation to the San Felipe Del Rio Consolidated Independent School District with sincere appreciation for the preeminent role district has played in the growth of this education for all Del Rio and Laughlin Air Force Base residents, past, present, and future. And it is a pleasure to extend this expression of my esteem and best wishes to SFDR CISD on their 50th anniversary. And I urge all residents to join me in recognizing the dedication and hard work of the San Felipe Del Rio Consolidated Independent School District board members and district staff in preparing today's students for tomorrow's world. Proclaimed this 18th day of October 2021, in witness whereof I have hereto set my hand on the seal and the San Felipe Del Rio Consolidated Independent School District this 18th day of October 2021, and have caused me the seal to be affixed. Raymond P. Mesa, Board President. If you could join us, I believe we have a little reception, Dr. Rios. One more item. We have a few more items. Okay. This time I'll turn it back to Sandra Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Mesa. At this time, I'm going to introduce you to Mr. Joshua D. Overfelt, School Board Trustee, who will give us a historical reflection of San Felipe Del Rio Consolidated Independent School District. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Overfelt.
Thank you. After hearing the proclamation, it pretty much wipes out my the stuff I had for this evening. It did a pretty good job of it. I want to preface with what I'm about to say that this particular consolidation that occurred in Del Rio was a very touchy subject, and 50 years later is still a wound or that has still trying to heal, and a scar that's still there. So the intent of this is to try and give some of the historical background and separate feelings and politics out of that. So with that being said, good evening again to all of our dignitaries, elected officials, San Felipe ISD and Del Rio ISD alumni, and of course our current San Felipe Del Rio Consolidated Independent School District members. By way of introduction, my name is Joshua D. Overfelt, board member, trustee place 2, and I'm currently assistant professor of history and government at Southwest Texas Junior College. This evening, we gather to begin a year-long celebration of what we have accomplished in the last 50 years as a district. Many of you who are here tonight are lifelong Del Rioans who may know the story of consolidation because you lived through it as a student, or witnessed it as a citizen, or perhaps even learned about it from a parent or a grandparent who went through what can only accurately be described as a very turbulent time in Del Rio's history. There is no denying that the 1971-72 school year, along with the next couple of school years, was difficult. That has to be acknowledged, that has to be recognized. Tonight, though, isn't fully about that infamous federal court ruling that took 2 districts and merged them. It's more about the idea that ultimately, together, we are better. Del Rio, like many border cities prior to desegregation under Brown versus the Board of Education, 1954, was a city that contained 2 independent school districts, San Felipe ISD and Del Rio ISD. What makes the story unique is how San Felipe ISD became a major point of pride for the San Felipe community from the late 1920s up through consolidation. Both ISDs would slowly grow during the first 45 to 50 years of the 20th century. It was really after World War II and the reactivation of Laughlin Air Force Base that Del Rio, as a city, began to really grow and expand. Both ISDs began to see their student populations begin to grow. And unfortunately for both districts, tax revenue was becoming a big problem. When you look at it for Del Rio ISD, the reasons for consolidation are many, but the most noticeable force that was at work was the ever-increasing enrollment and physically small tax base. When you look at square mileage that the district encompassed, that tax base's inability to finance continuous growth within Del Rio ISD. San Felipe ISD and its much larger tax base area-wise also faced, unfortunately, the same situation. By the mid-1960s, the United States was going through what many historians called social upheaval and unrest. This was an after effect of the civil rights movement and the ongoing Vietnam conflict. For San Felipe ISD and Del Rio ISD, a crossroads had finally been reached in regards to the future of education in the area. Both were trying to expand, and this was made difficult again by the lack of funds, particularly the tax base. Laughlin Air Force Base would ultimately play a role in bringing about consolidation as well. Laughlin fell within the San Felipe ISD boundaries, but students from Laughlin had historically transferred along with federal impact funds to Del Rio ISD. In the mid to late 60s, San Felipe ISD finally said no more and began a legal fight to stop the transfers. Ultimately, 1971 came around, and as the 1971-72 school year approached, the districts were unable to come to an agreement on the potential transfers. Adding to that were rumors that began to circulate that Laughlin Air Force Base might close if the districts could not figure out the transfer issue. Because of that, the Del Rio Independent School District Board of Trustees voted to approach the courts with a request to be ordered to consolidate. Acting upon the request, federal judge William Wayne Justice of Tyler, Texas, ordered a hearing. That summer, Judge Justice, drawing upon his vast experience with black and white segregated districts in East Texas, of which many were still pending action in district court, went in and gathered Del Rio ISD and its attorneys, San Felipe ISDs and its attorneys, Texas Education Agency, and several other public education agencies, and heard testimony. After 9 hours and 40 minutes behind closed doors, Judge Justice ordered complete and immediate consolidation and desegregation. San Felipe ISD was to be consolidated with Del Rio ISD, and school officials had until August 30th, 1971, to open the doors to all schools. And again, this came just weeks before the school year was to go in and start. That first year, by no means was easy, as anyone from 71, 72 can go in and attest. But ultimately, on a warm and humid evening in front of a packed stadium, the first group of San Felipe Del Rio Consolidated Independent School District seniors graduated on June 7th, 1972. Of the 335 graduates, valedictorians Rodolfo Urbi and Mary Dodd Abbott, and salutatorians Humberto Garcia and Patricia Sue Madison represented the best of the new district's students. Superintendent Poole, Assistant Superintendent Segala handed out the hard-earned diplomas to the anxious graduates after all had listened and solemnly reflected upon guest speaker Lieutenant Colonel Charles S. Bryan's thought-provoking address entitled Hope of a Tired World. 50 years later, each day, nearly 10,000 students walk through the doors of the schools inside San Felipe Del Rio Consolidated Independent School District. These students, Anglos, Mexican American, Black, poor, rich, middle class, lower class, were not involved in these events of 1971. Some of the older students at the high school level maybe have heard about the former two high schools and stories about rivalry, animosity, racism, hatred, that all existed. And these emotions that they evoked, however, seem trivial to the new generation of citizens. Younger teachers and administrators also view the remnants of this rivalry with peculiar amusement. Of those educators who were most concerned with the well-being of the students at the time of consolidation, some still work within the district. New employees from colleges and universities now easily pass across the tired and worn lines that once divided the district. Time, however, cannot be stopped. Many of the old district's hardliners have passed from the scene. Individuals with no preconceived prejudices have appeared. And more lasting than prejudice and hatred, the spirit of mission which new employees bring to the district has done more than anything else to truly consolidate the two former school systems. And for these, there is an inscription that was located over the entrance to San Felipe Memorial Middle School that expressed a description of the school's product, which should always overpower any inclinations towards hate and prejudice. Through these doors walk the future of our world. And because of that, together, we are ultimately better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Overfelt. Next, it gives me great honor and privilege to introduce to you a wonderful educator who has graciously accepted to speak with us tonight. He is Mr. Julio C Ramos. Help me in applauding and asking him to come forward, who will give us a bit of reflection of the time during consolidation. He was the person who worked with our students firsthand during consolidation, so he'll give his account. Join me in welcoming Mr. Ramos.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you. Appreciate that. When she called me, I thought, I don't know about this. It's been 50 years. I'm not sure that my memory still works, but here we are. I spent many hours thinking about it, and I don't want to go into the politics of what happened back then. I'd rather concentrate on what was happening with the students and the kind of things that they did, and of course, they brought forth many good things. Congratulations on this building, board members and Superintendent Rios. I had not been back, and you've done a great job. I was principal in this building in the early 90s, and I think back then we used to have a joke about this building. We'd say, you know what's holding up this building? All those layers of paint. That's all that's holding them up. And I know that you folks have put a lot of work into the restructuring, and so thank you for that. I'd like to recognize the graduates of San Felipe High School 71 and the graduates of Del Rio High School 71, because they also are celebrating 50 years of years passing. So congratulations to you all. As I said, 50 years is a long time, and memory fades, of course. But I want to share some facts, and I say facts with quotation marks, because sometimes I may not remember exactly, but here goes. Board members, members of administration, staff of Laughlin Air Force Base, and ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor for me to be here. It's an honor and a privilege for me to sit here and address you. I was teaching at San Felipe High School 6 years prior to consolidation. I was also involved in sponsoring the student council there. So we had some great kids, and of course, I want to tell you a little bit more about that later, but in the summer of 1971, I was awarded a grant by the National Science Foundation, and I went to Eastern Kentucky University to study biology, and I spent 2 months there, a little over 2 months. I had no idea what was happening here in Del Rio. My mom would keep me informed, but Mom was very she was a teacher at Garfield at the time, and she was trying to not make it so that I would worry too much, so she wouldn't give me the whole story. But I was at the end of my studies there, I rushed back because we were going to start school early at San Felipe High School. Well, I rushed in here on a Sunday afternoon. I thought, well, I better go see my parents before I do anything else. I drove to their house, and as I came up the driveway, Mom comes rushing out of the house. I said, wow, Mom's happy to see me after 8 to 9 weeks. That's great. I was expecting a big motherly hug from her. And she looks at me, she stops and looks at me and says, do you know what happened? I said, what? She said, the federal judge in Tyler, Texas, has declared that the 2 school districts should merge, should consolidate. And I said, oh my goodness. But that's how I was greeted back from going to school. And that's the kind of excitement that generated the total process of consolidation. In any case, I know that a few days later, Mr. Ramon, who was appointed principal, Mr. Simon Ramon was appointed principal at Del Rio High School, and he calls me and he said, "Mr. Ramos, you're going to be the student council sponsor over here. You know that, don't you?" I said, I was hoping not, but he said, "Well, we need you. Mr. Charles Boston is going to work with you." Mr. Boston was the head counselor at the time at the Del Rio High School. So anyway, I asked, "Well, what is it that I should be expecting?" And he said, "Well, you're going to have to get students working together. You're going to have to bring the two student councils from the one from San Felipe, the one from Del Rio, put them together and have them work together." And I said, "Well, that's not so bad. We can do that." And they said, "Further, we want you to work on changing the school culture." And I said, "What is that? What do you mean?" He said, "Well, the school colors and the school mascot and the school song and all of that goes with students." And I said, "Okay." So we had a plan. We put it together. We brought the student council members of both schools together, and we started doing just that. Early on, during the football season, we had a process whereby students nominated certain colors. We put them on a ballot, and they voted, and sure enough, the royal blue and white is what won. I brought it to the board, and they approved it. But it wasn't until after football season that the board administration instructed me to do another election, this time for a school mascot. Well, okay, so we sent out the same kind of information, give us your nominations, and we'll see what we can do with this. And so guess what? All of the nominations were either horse-related or cat-related. I said, "It's not going to work, guys. Mustangs and Wildcats, if you're familiar with the old San Felipe and Del Rio schools." And so it's not going to work. So we tried it, but no. Superintendent was very upset that we even considered. So anyway, we went back and we put out the information. The kids started giving us nominations. We got about 24 or so, and put them on ballots and had the student body vote. Well, I came to the board. In fact, the board used to meet in the cafeteria that was right behind this building. I came to the board to tell them what the results of that election were. And so I told them the students wanted Blue Devils. And the board said, "What?" I said, that's what they voted for. Of all of the 25 or so entries that had the most votes, I said, "We don't think we can go with Blue Devils." I said, "Well, what else do you have?" And I said, so I gave them 2 or 3 other top winning items, and they said, "Well, we like Rams." And so this place, this community in those days was very strong in the wool and mohair industry, as you know. And so that's where that went, and that's where the Rams came from. When we came back to high school and announced that's what we were going to be from now on, everybody was real thrilled. I was real happy for that. And our student council members were very instrumental in making it work and bringing students together and making sure that it went smoothly. And so the Queens, on the other hand, decided that they didn't want to be Ramettes. They didn't want to be Lady Rams, which is a little bit odd to say Lady Rams. But anyway, they got together as teams, the girls' teams, basketball and others, and decided, well, we're going to ask that Queens be our mascot name. And it was approved, and so therefore there was no student body involved, but it was all approved and it went well. And so today, of course, we have our Rams and we have our Queens. In closing, I'd like to say that that school year, 1971 and 72, was not an easy one. You know that the emotions were high, including among the community, among the students, among teachers, even administrators, and board members, everybody. But I want to say this: the young people that were representing their respective schools, students that were on the student councils from San Felipe del Rio, from San Felipe and from Del Rio, they were truly remarkable young people. And I remember them as being in the middle of a storm, if you will, in the eye of the storm, and yet they held true to what they wanted to do. They held firm to the charge and responsibility of getting the job done. So I look back now and see some of these young folks, and all of them seem to have had successful careers. All of them seem to be doing well. And so if ever we start thinking that our young people cannot handle major responsibilities, we need to think twice about that, because when given the opportunity, of course, there'll be kids forever, but if you let them, but if you give them a responsibility and give them a charge, they get down to the task. And so, again, I'm real proud of them, and I'm glad to say that they laid down the foundation for a new and lasting culture for San Felipe del Rio Consolidated Independent School District. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, everyone. I think that now we've gone to a point where everyone, we have put together a special commemorative piece. As someone mentioned earlier, this was a huge undertaking to put together some historical background, looking at data, board books, research. It's taken a little bit more than a year to put together. And then we came to the point where we said, you know, this is going to be more than just one account, one video. So this will be the first in the series. It's called The Beginning. And I believe at this time, I'm going to ask the board if they want to be comfortable to join us in the seat so that they could see the video.
With a unity of mind, a unity of purpose, the students gathered in a common belief that they are one. And to be genuinely unified, the students must work, live, play, learn, and most of all, be together. It's rare that students in today's generation truly know the history of San Felipe del Rio Consolidated Independent School District. What's even more inconceivable to our young generation nowadays is that 50 years ago, our parents, grandparents, and perhaps even our great-grandparents lived in a time when they attended or worked in one of two entirely separate school districts. This story is about that era. The beginning of a forced period of transformational change that would divide and unite our schools, our families, and our neighboring communities at the same time. Across the nation, court orders in the 60s and 70s consolidated school districts, redrew school zoning, and prompted busing programs to make schools more racially balanced. In 1970, a federal judge in East Texas by the name of William Wayne Justice placed the entire state of Texas under a desegregation order. In August of 1971, just as students and teachers across town were enjoying the last few days of summer, school leaders were receiving notices of a federal court order that would change Del Rio history forever. Superintendents of San Felipe ISD and Del Rio ISD, Mr. Homero Sigala and Mr. O.B. Poole, respectively, each briefed their school boards of the immediate order to desegregate their schools. Anyone who remembers witnessing this dramatic period of school integration decades ago remembers hearing the news that their schools and traditions that they so eagerly looked forward to in the coming school year would soon be coming to a screeching halt. Following the federal court ruling in 1970, both independent school districts were suddenly faced with a series of questions and concerns. What would become of San Felipe ISD? What would become of Del Rio ISD as these two districts were forced to go in and integrate, merge, and consolidate? One of the biggest issues was how would two school boards and two superintendents ultimately come together? And that would ultimately be decided on September 2nd of 1971, and when all 11 members of San Felipe Del Rio CISD would meet for the very first time to take the oath of office and begin the process of transitioning traditions, mascots, student leaders, and above all, heal a wound that had been created in the city of Del Rio over this particular consolidation order. It would take nearly 50 years for that wound to go in and heal. From Wildcats and Mustangs, we eventually became the mighty Rams and Queens, because together, ultimately, we dare mighty things. No doubt that the federal desegregation order sparked an overwhelming amount of emotions during the 1971-1972 school year. But amidst the turmoil of this time, there were three things that remained constant: hope, pride, and determination. It took a few years, but eventually district leaders, teachers, parents, community members, and even students gave rise to the concept of a common belief that they are one, and that together, we are better. With a unity of mind, a unity of purpose, the students gathered in a common belief that they are one. And to be genuinely unified, the students must work, live, play, learn, and most of all, be together.
this moment to recognize the media department for their hard work and Mr. Overfelt for the narration. You guys have done a great job. Congratulations. Happy 50th anniversary. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Carlos Rios for a few last words.
Thank y'all for joining us this evening. It was just a nice overview of history. Mr. Overfelt, you did a tremendous job in sharing it. I think that I wondered how many in the crowd were like me, just wanted to ask questions. How about this? How about that? So thank you for doing that. Mr. Julio Ramos, you're always one of our heroes. Thank you for being here. Our media department, this video is just a preview of the next 2 or 3 episodes that'll come. They do terrific work because their heart is in it. So good job to them. Reno, Willard, Peter, everybody else that helped out. Awesome. And then to Sandra Hernandez, our mistress of ceremony, she worried about this, putting everything together and everything to come. But as you can see, Sandra, it was a beautiful job. So congratulations to you and your team. So in closing, just wanted to mention the festivities of the 50th anniversary are year-round. We're going to have a homecoming parade this week, Wednesday. And we'll start at the CT Center on 10th Street. And then we have our homecoming game on Friday. And we'll present the flag and we'll continue the festivities. Thank you to our board members for all that you do each and every day. And certainly for being part of this celebration and allowing it to happen. I am the first superintendent, of all due respect to Mr. Fernandez. I'm the first superintendent to have graduated from the Consolidated District, is what they tell me. And I hope that forever and a day we will be together because we are better. To our community members and our elected officials, that has been extremely clear over the last year and a half. I'm looking at Mr. Owens because people like him and other elected officials, they've certainly embodied that together is better. And they've been real statesmen over the last year and a half. And that's what we need. We need that unity. So thank you. I hope you will join us for some treats outside and visit and mingle with each other and relive the times. So to everybody that's here that participated in one way or another, this is us 50 years later. Thank you for all the groundwork that you laid. Thank you for coming together so that we could have all of this and that our children and grandchildren can have this as well. So God bless each and every one of you, and I hope you'll join us for some snacks. Thank you for coming.